Today we're going to be fixing the one problem that keeps me from driving my 1966 Volkswagen bus. No, it's not the crazy amount of rust. No, it's not the door that barely opens or the missing interior. No, it's not the lack of floor. It's the fact that it won't stay in fourth gear. Now imagine you're going down the road, rolling through all the gears. You're sitting in fourth, everything's good, and you go to touch the pedal. Next thing you know, it sounds like a gunshot, and it throws it right out of fourth. Now, my solution to this was to add this little hook. Some people use a bungee cord. I've found this works pretty well, and I got pretty good at doing it. It essentially keeps it from popping out mechanically. I can pull it back out, pop it out in gear. Now this works, but it's probably only a temporary fix because it may end up just completely killing my transmission. So today we're going to try to fix this the semi-right way. We're going to take the transmission all apart and get to the fourth gear and see what it looks like and replace it if we need to. But I've never taken apart a transmission before, so this ought to be interesting. Worst comes to worst, I guess I'm just going to end up buying a rebuild. Definitely going to be sad to get rid of the hook though. It really added a lot of character points to the bus. Now, as you can probably tell, this bus isn't exactly in the best shape. So I kind of done all this on a budget, or making any improvements where I can, not really being too concerned about originality. Now, one of the original thoughts I had was actually deleting these reduction boxes when I install a new transmission, because it really slows things down, and this thing does not need this much gearing. But the more and more I looked into that, it seemed to be very complicated and was very difficult to do without lowering the bus, which I really don't want to do. So I think we're going to try to keep it stock. And honestly, one of the best safety features of this bus is the fact it can only go 60 miles an hour. While we're in there, we're also going to be fixing this problem and adding a gas tank. I've been running off a boat tank for a couple 100 miles, and honestly, that's worked pretty well. You just open this hatch up and fill it right up at a gas station. But I think it'll be nice to have the full capacity again. You can see the new fuel tank right in there. Well, I guess first things first, I'm going to take this tank out. Got this plugged off, so I'm actually going to start the bus up and let it suck all the fuel up so that we're not dumping fuel everywhere when we take the engine out. Now, if you haven't seen the first video on this bus, you should go check it out. Link in the description. It was sitting in the woods for 40 years and I pulled it out. I've been slowly getting it back on the road. Now, when I say this is the one thing that's been keeping me from driving this bus, it's kind of not true. Because I have been driving it quite a lot. It's just that I'm afraid one of these times when I go to shift into fourth, I'm going to hear a loud bang and then I'm not going to have any gears. Forgot to keep the battery cables loose, so if the bus is burning down, I could just pull it off. I should have got a battery with a handle. Now it's time to pull some wiring, the oil cooler, and the fuel line. Then we should be able to start unbolting the engine. Oh man, that fuel line needs to be replaced. It's hard as a rock. Broken. What the hell? Okay, well, came off. Just happened to break the bolt. I'm not sure what happened there. I gotta see if I can get this to handle like the engine. Alright, so I got the oil cooler out the way. Oh, almost forgot the throttle cable. That gets me every time. Don't do that real quick. And then we'll pull this front apron off and try to actually pull the engine. Now we're gonna pop this front apron off. Now it'll probably be a really good time to paint this, but I'm not gonna do that. Now we shouldn't need to pull the bumper. We can just lift the bus up a lot and take her down and out. I'm gonna try to use a jack table. I'm not sure how that's gonna go. Might just end up using the jack. Okay. It's on there pretty well, mostly out the way. Now I just need to get behind there. It's the hardest part, and get the top two 17s loose. I got all the bolts to hold the engine in out. Now it's time to pull it. Put on the parking brake. Now, I've never actually taken an engine out of a bus that's set up right before, so I'm not sure if you're actually supposed to pull the bumper or not, but we're about to find out. So close, but so far, I don't know if Jack's gonna have it. That's it, oh Jack. So, looks like we definitely are gonna have to pull the bumper, but I've had it off before, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Okay, the engine put up a little bit of a fight, but we got it free and we got the bumper out. So I'm gonna wheel this off and get this cart empty and then pull the trans. It's a good time to check the rear main and see that it is leaking. Although I had already replaced the rear main seal on this, so I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do about that. Although it's leaking all the way up here, that's interesting. Huh. As you can see, the seals on the transmission are pretty bad because it's just dumping gear oil when it's put up this high. So I just pulled the starter. Now I'm gonna take off this clutch cable. Remember, it's about there. Undo the transmission mounts. Do the rear mount too, undo the brake lines. And then I think I'm gonna have to pull these wheels off, get the hubs off and everything too. Drop this to ground. Drop the whole bus to ground probably, or close to it. And I think I can pull this transmission forward and out. That's playing. Ooh, I tore up my seal. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh. All right, let's see what kind of mess comes out of here. That's a good amount of magnet material on there again. You can see all the swirls. That is all metal shavings, but we knew that. It doesn't even look that bad, but there actually is an entire channel that's filled too. See how bad this really is. Okay, so I got the parking brake cables disconnected, everything drained. Now I need to try to get the shifter disconnected, which is gonna really be a pain because I put some Loctite on it because it fell out. I couldn't really do much better about that, so might be here for a little bit. Oh, that's not too bad. Alright, so that should be free now. So now we gotta disconnect these brake lines, which is unfortunate because that means we'll have to bleed the brakes again, but I think there's a trick that might help with that a little bit. Now apparently, if you take the cap off your master cylinder, the plastic bag here, screw it back on, it should seal a bit and I won't have to bleed my brakes as much when I'm done. We'll see if that actually works. I'm a little afraid the brake fluid's gonna end up eating that bag, but we'll see. Okay. That's gonna make a bit of a mess, but ideally not a lot of a mess. Actually, that's already better. Oh, it actually works. Which means we can get this out the way. Okay, we got this clip off. Pile of bolts is getting big. Now we're getting pretty close to actually pulling it out. I think next step would be unbolting the front of the transmission. So we're gonna do that. Now an interesting thing with this bus is that it actually has the wrong transmission in it. It's supposed to have, they call the big nut box, but it actually has an early bus transmission, which means the gearing's even worse. So this thing must have a lot of miles on it, because that means someone's already gone through the whole transmission. Unfortunately, it looks like we pulled a stud, but it should be alright. Doesn't look like it's too damaged. I think it was just so rusty it caused the stud to come. I'll fix that later. But we got the ground strap off. And I think everything should be unbolted up here. Now it's just dropping the reduction boxes and the front bolts. I'm gonna raise the bus back up so I can put it as low as I can. I don't have to drop the reduction boxes too far. Fall down. Okay. All right, there should be nothing holding this transmission in. Let me try lowering it a bit. There it is, there's our prize. All that work. Can try to figure out what on earth is going on with it. It's so empty in here. This thing is quite difficult to move, but made it work. All right, it's time to tear into this thing. To be honest with you, I don't really know what I'm gonna be looking for once I'm inside. I've never pulled a manual apart before, so this ought to be interesting, but hoping I'll find something worn, especially fourth gear, and be able to replace it. Also, I'm just gonna have to go through and replace all these seals because it's leaking from pretty much everywhere. I did notice the nose cone has some play in the shifter, side to side and kind of up and down. No, that's probably not good, but I also don't know what is considered bad on that. First, we're gonna pop the brake hardware off and the backing plate, then you can split the gear reduction boxes in half. After I split the reduction boxes, should be able to pull the axle tubes off and then can get the axles themselves, but I might need to get a different puller to make that happen. Then we could just isolate it to just this transmission and it'll be a lot easier to work on. We'll start tearing that down. Finally got both the reduction boxes pulled off. This one was a bit of a pain, but I used a wheel bearing puller to get the little bearing outer piece off. And then the case half finally got off. So next step is pulling these tubes off of this shaft. Got everything organized in these parts where I can. With longer projects like these, really try to put stuff in boxes and organize each side because it may be a while before I can get back to putting these together. So need to make sure everything's in its right place. Now I'm going to try to pull that C-clip in there and see if we can get this axle off. Not sure if I have to pull something to get this out first. We'll see. All right, so first I think I'm going to tackle the nose cone and get this pulled off. See the inside of the differential there. Everything looks in pretty decent shape so far, but the real interesting stuff is back here where the gear sets are. So we will see what's in there. Got both halves out. It was pretty easy. I think this bearing may need to be replaced, but you can see the pinion, and need to figure out how to pull this gear set out, or maybe it goes that way. Probably goes that way, so I have to figure that out. Then we should be able to inspect the actual first, second, third, and fourth gears. That's what we're after. Got the input shaft disconnected. Now I'm working on trying to get this nut off so that I can press the pinion out and then get the gear set up and off. So we got our main gear set and carrier housing out. Was a bit of a battle, but I was able to get it. So now I'm gonna see if I can get some of this apart a little bit more so I can inspect the fourth gear is really what I'm looking for. We'll see what we can do. Try to get these two shafts out. So I think I found fourth gear, and I did see some damage on these teeth. So apparently what you can do is knock these teeth out and avoid the problem, or you can get a new gear. So I'm gonna see what I'm gonna gonna end up doing. Need to think on this a little bit. So probably about 10, 15 hours of work just to get to this little thing. This is our culprit. So you can see that looks like a tooth that wasn't being used. And if we go to the next one, that was one that was being used. See how there's that cut in it. I think that's what's causing the pop. It's not engaging fully because it's got that wear on the edge. At least that's what they say online, so we'll see what we can do here. So having these two shafts out is actually a really good example of how manual transmissions work. Imagine these two shafts are spinning, floating inside the transmission. This one goes out to the wheels, and this one is the input from the engine. So as you can see, if I put these shafts like this, these gears line up. And some of these gears actually free float unless they're locked by the coupler, which is attached to the shift forks, which is attached to your gear shifter. So right here you can see your first gear. These are the two gears, the tiny gear and then a big gear for first gear. Second gear, which is this gear, that gear, third gear, this gear, that gear. And then fourth gear, which is the one we're after, is this gear and that gear. And you can see this spins freely on the shaft until this is locked in, and then it rotates the whole shaft, which would in turn rotate this shaft, which goes out to the wheels. And there's sliders here between every two gears. That's why there's the up and down motion to slide in between the two sets of gears of first and second and third and fourth. See, for example, now that's in. And these bronze things are actually synchronizers. So imagine these are spinning really, really fast, and the synchronizer kind of catches this before it goes to the actual gear. So it kind of slows down the jolt from the difference between the engine and the wheel speed. So first it grabs the synchronizer, and then it actually grabs the gear. So this is our fourth gear. And the interesting thing about these old VWs is they seem to only wear out sets of 3 on these teeth. So you can see we have these nice gray sides to these gears where my fingernail is. And then these have sort of a shiny edge to them. And that's what's causing our popping. So we have 1, 2, 3 with a shiny edge, back to flat for another 3. And then we have shiny edge again for 3 of them, then back to flat. So apparently what you can do is actually knock out some of these teeth. I don't know if I'm gonna do that or if I'm just gonna buy a new fourth gear, but well, we'll see how much they cost, and then I'll probably make my decision. As you can see, I'm grinding these teeth away. These are the teeth that were the problem. I'm trying to get them flush so they don't engage. So I got these teeth pretty well knocked out for the offending worn teeth. Only these teeth get used for some reason, even though all these other teeth are available. It's just the way these were. I'm not really sure why. But either way, it can grab pretty easy. I mean, there is some slump in there now because the teeth aren't as fat as the other ones, but apparently people do this all the time. And it seems to work, so I know this isn't the right way, but will it get it to stop popping out of fourth is the question. And I understand too, this probably might accelerate the wear, but it is going to be a lot more teeth that it's riding on instead of the 9 it was. So we will start reassembling and see what we get. Got the fourth gear back on the input shaft. You can see these both move free until we slide the shaft over to 1. It's a little hard when it's on the bench. So there we go. Got it in third gear. Now if we want to go into fourth, put it back into neutral. And then pop it over here. And that puts it into fourth, this is our gear that we modified right here. So you have this ready to try to install back into the rear carrier assembly. Once we get that, get all the shift forks aligned, then we can start assembling the transmission again. So I've got the carrier housing assembled and both the shafts in. They spin freely, and I was able to shift into all the gears. So now I gotta focus on trying to put this back into the transmission. I'm gonna start cleaning up the transmission itself first. All right, finally getting somewhere. Trying to get our reverse gear set into place, and then we will take this housing, put it back into here. And I have to line up the reverse shaft, line up all the other shafts, push it in. I'm just to do a test fit at first to make sure everything engages right and feels okay. And then I will do the gasket and lock it down. So we're moving. We'll see if it actually works. Got it back together for a test fit. All the gears seem to be spinning correctly, so that's good news. Reverse got into, which is a big deal on these because it's kind of a pain to hold reverse and get it on that spine, but we got it in. So next step is going to be putting the gasket on, putting some sealant just a little bit, and doing this part for real. Also need to peen these over. Since the test fit was good, time to put some sealant and a gasket on, and then we're gonna put the main carrier housing on for good. Continue with the assembly. All right, so I got everything back together for the main carrier assembly and the input shaft connected again. So I'm gonna show you all the gears just to show how this works. So we got these forks here, and you can either push one of these out or pull it in for each of them, except reverse. And then you'll see the ratio between these two shafts change when I spin it. So that should be first gear. I'll go for a second. Third. And then we have fourth. Okay, so I think we got all the gears. I'm going to continue putting everything back together. Okay, so I finally got the transaxle all back together. Threw a coat of paint on it just to protect some of the spots that the paint flaked off. Gonna put it back in the bus now. Let's hope this works. Got everything in and up to the point where we're gonna fill the transmission up with fluid. Hoping nothing leaks out. Got the transmission all filled up, and thankfully it's not leaking. It's the biggest thing I'm worried about. Still not quite out of the woods yet. Might leak when we run it, but so far so good. Gonna put the engine in. All right, we're ready to try to start it up. Got everything in, everything connected, all my oil cooler stuff connected. Tested the fan. Got it filled up with gas, put a new gas tank in while I was at it. Let's see what it does. I'm gonna test these gears while it's up in the air too. Alright, everything's back in, on the ground. We're ready to give it a real test on the road. got everything back together, and the good news is fourth gear works great now. Bad news is first gear doesn't work at all. And I was curious to see how much do I really need first gear. So I tried going up this hill, stopping on this hill, and starting in second. Turns out this clutch is not up for very much, and now I'm stuck here because if I go back any farther, I'll end up at the field. So getting someone to come with the truck and help tow me out. If only I'd adjusted that 1-2 fork a little bit better. We're gonna take a look at what we can do about that tomorrow. Back under here again. Luckily it doesn't look like we got many leaks, but still got that first gear issue. So I'm gonna do something bad, and I'm gonna drill a hole in the side of the case, right where that 14 about is. And that should allow me to adjust the first gear fork with it still being inside the car. We'll see what that does. Now, this is kind of risky because, you know, obviously you're drilling a hole in the side of your transmission. I don't need to tell you that, but to mitigate the mess it makes, I'm tilting the van slightly this way so that, and actually leaving it full of fluid, so when I drill the hole, all the fluid will push all of the chips from drilling out. So we should be able to get it pretty clean. I'm also going to minimize how many chips I make by continuously vacuuming while I'm drilling. So we'll see what that does. As long as I can get it to not leak, it should be fine. I've seen other people do it, and apparently it does usually last. And especially this, I mean, it's only 40 horsepower. We're not going to be pushing anything too hard, so we should be all right. Okay.
That's pretty circular.
Okay.
Look at that.
Just fill the thing up with stuff.
No, so you want the magnesium in it.
So we didn't explain very well, but we did this to get access to this bolt. So that bolt adjusts the 1-2 shift fork for first and second gear. So now I can get a bolt on it. I can get a socket on it. Just loosen it up a little bit. And we'll keep messing with it and then use the borescope to see if it actually engages fully like it should. So I'm gonna slide it a little bit more. So that was a lot more. Now we're probably not gonna have second gear. We got the, you can see the engagement right here. So if I slide this over a little bit, that's the synchro. And then next to the synchro, the little teeth, it needs to be fully engaged on this when it's in first gear. So that's what we're trying to make sure of. So we're gonna fiddle with this and see what we get. How straight am I? I should make a YouTube video. Is your VW popping out at first? Try this. People would shoot me.
This works on any VW. This will work on a Volkswagen Jetta 2015.
We're getting towards the end. I can feel it. You're right, though.
You can.
It will stop. All right, as you can see, I tapped the plug and then put a 3/4 inch MPT pipe plug in there. So that's sealed up, and I need to probably put some sealant on it just to make sure it doesn't leak, but it hasn't been leaking a lot so far. And with that, should be ready to take it on a drive and see how it does. All right, so everything's back together in the transmission. We're gonna take it on a test ride and we're gonna see how it goes. Everything feels all right. Reversal's in the right spot. Let's see. All right, going for first gear. It's working. We got first gear. Alright, we're gonna take it out on the highway and see how it does going all the way through all the gears. Second. Third. Fourth. Not holding it or anything, it's not popping. No hook. Feels good. I think we fixed it. In fourth gear, we hit the gas. No popping. 50 miles an hour. It's working good. I think we might have fixed it. So we did it. Run to drives has all the gears, fourth doesn't pop out anymore, and we just have one extra access hole inside the transmission. I'd say that's probably a win. I'm gonna drain and flush the fluid one more time in the transmission to make sure any metal shavings get out. The thing with the metal shavings is they're made out of magnesium, so they're relatively soft. Still not great for it, but most likely isn't gonna cause any major damage. If you want to keep seeing this bus, subscribe, because there's going to be a lot more videos about it.